Our session on chatbots today, getting PeopleSoft chatbots production ready in 5 simple steps. We're very pleased to be with you today. So my name is Cameron McClurg. I am a managing director with SpearMC. Logesh, we can move on to the next, as we go through the slides. Are you able to? There we go. All right, and I'm on the right side. Our main speaker is Logesh. He will be covering our chatbots. I will be kicking off the session and handing off to him. Both of us are managing directors at SpearMC. I've been working with PeopleSoft since the 90s and am very pleased to see some of the emerging technologies that have been coming out in the last few years and with respect to chatbots. So Logesh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Cameron. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the session on chatbots, and hope all of you are having a great virtual conference so far. And as Cameron mentioned, one of the specialization is working with PeopleSoft on the emerging technology side, and I and Cameron both specialize on various emerging technology aspects. And we are great to see the amount of interest in this specific topic on chatbots, and we have some great in-depth content to share with you today. So looking forward to it. With that, I'll hand it over back to Cameron.
So just a quick slide about SpearMC. We are previously Oracle Platinum partner. Now we have our specializations in the new model. But really, PeopleSoft is our main bread and butter. While our other peers have moved on to other technologies and systems, we still focus on being your one-stop shop for PeopleSoft, whether that's new implementations, hosting, managed services, training, licensing, all of that we can do for our PeopleSoft customers. Most recently, going all in on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, of which you will hear a little bit about the platform service today about Oracle Digital Assistant. So we're all in on that, and we're very pleased that in the 2021 Gartner Market Guide for OCI, we were the only PeopleSoft dedicated firm on the list. So we're very pleased and very proud of that fact. But we are all about PeopleSoft, and we love to talk about it. So today we'll be talking about chatbots. So I'll be covering just a quick sort of introduction on conversational interfaces. Just what are they? What is a chatbot, right? And so we're going to talk just really briefly about conversational interfaces, and then Logesh will take over and work through all the details with respect to what PeopleSoft and Oracle is doing in this space. From a high level, from a value proposition, the current state and roadmap, and then kind of some nuts and bolts about how you would actually go about deploying actual chatbots. So just a brief history of conversational interfaces. There have been a lot, and if you look here, you might recognize some of these. This goes all the way from an initial telegraph ability to send information a long ways, all the way through more recent examples of something like Oregon Trail, which is more of a pop culture reference, but it's the same concept where you're typing in using your natural language, you're using your natural language, and the computer's understanding you, or the system's understanding you, and responding back into some kind of algorithm. So essentially, that is what a conversational interface is. It's been around for a long time. They're just getting better and better as we go. So let's think about what is the conversational interface. It really is this user interface with a computer that emulates a conversation with a real human. So instead of having the user having to learn by navigating through a menu or entering the right information at the right time in the right fields, instead the conversational interface's goal is to really understand the person as opposed to the other way around. And really that CUI is really provides opportunity for the user to speak naturally and for the machine to learn. So that's basically what a conversational interface is. So let's talk about the natural flow of a conversational interface. First, there has to be this interpretation of the intent of the request, okay? And so every chatbot or conversational interface requires the use of a natural language processor. There's many out there. Oracle has one themselves, and you're going to hear more about that today with Oracle Digital Assistant. But the first thing is to basically translate the intent of the user. Once you have that intent, you're matching that up with a dialogue flow, or sort of saying, okay, I think this is what you want, so let me get you into this flow of a dialogue. Once it gets you into that flow, it knows what it's expecting from you. That's retrieving that or getting that information from you, and then going and retrieving that information from the repository and bringing that back to you in the form of a conversational response. That's the basic flow of a conversational interface. And that happens whether you're talking about a chatbot on PeopleSoft, or if you're talking about an Alexa or any other types of conversational interfaces. All of that's doing the same concepts, okay? So how does that play out with respect to what we all do with managing PeopleSoft or enterprise resource management planning systems? So let's think about an example of a typical process within an organization. An end user picks up the phone and wants to ask a repetitive question. They might call a help desk, they might call something within a student administration, an HCM or an HR area. They're going to pick up a phone, they're going to ask a basic question. The person that's taking that question needs to first understand what they're asking. The person, the helper, will then go and open PeopleSoft and navigate to the right spot. They'll ask perhaps for some required information to verify the person is who they say they are. Maybe it's an employee ID, user ID, etc. And then the helper is going to respond with an answer. If they don't get it right, then you repeat that whole process. And this can take a lot of back and forth. Okay, and the two people have to basically marry up in terms of what the person's looking for and what the helper is responding. This process, if done quickly and efficiently, is fine, but typically this isn't efficient. And this is what we call friction in the process, okay? And typically what happens is, and we've all done this when you call the bank, when you call whoever, and you're sitting on hold for a while, you finally get to somebody, they don't know what you're wanting, and they kick you over to somebody else. This is friction. And so the idea with the conversational interface is really to reduce that friction. This generally is just poor customer service. And chatbots within Oracle are designed to improve on your customer service, basically give that end user what they want faster, while also reducing the burden, which means employee costs, right? For those employees to actually manage that back and forth with that conversation. Okay, so really looking into the future, we're talking about a huge change in demographics and expectations. So currently, if you just look at the workforce, 1/3 of the workforce is millennials and Gen Z. This is not even talking about your student population, which generally is almost 100% in that millennial and Gen Z arena. Within a decade, that's going to be up to 50% in terms of your workforce. Not only are employees and students going to accept those functioning conversational interfaces, they're actually going to expect them, okay? And that's a really important point. So as we sort of transition now, I'm going to hand it over to Logesh. This is sort of putting us in this mode of saying, okay, not only is this something to kind of dabble with, we need to actually get out ahead of this and to provide this to our students and to our workforce in order to stay competitive, frankly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Logesh, and he's going to talk us through what PeopleSoft and Oracle is doing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cameron. And just taking it a step further, we are going to focus the rest of the session on what is available out of the box for the PeopleSoft customers across the pillar, be it HR, finance, campus solutions, and learning and other systems, and how best you can make use of what is delivered and how to actually take it all the way and deploy it to your users, end users, be it students, be it your employees. So we'll go through that process. But before that, I want to actually quickly show a demo of a chatbot, a PeopleSoft chatbot on how it works, and especially for those who have not seen one in working before. So it's essentially a good overview of that. So let me log into the HCM application, and the majority of the process that I'm going to show is going to be very similar, whether it's HR, finance, or campus solution, a student using the chatbot. The process is going to be very similar. So for this use case, I'm picking up a chatbot that is delivered for the PeopleSoft HCM application, that is the benefit assistant. So I'm logging in as an employee who has some benefits related questions. That's the use case that I'm going to demo today. And as part of the employee self-service, there is a benefit details tile that then takes me to a variety of benefits related information. And so in this latest version of the HCM application image, where we have deployed this benefit assistant chatbot, you see a tile in there that's benefit assistant. That sort of is the gateway to get the interaction with this benefit assistant or the chatbot going. So let's say I'll start with something that to get the conversation going. And the system recognizes, since I've already logged into the PeopleSoft application, recognizes my name, who is logged into the application, and says basically it's there to help with any benefit related questions. So let's say I will start with something simple, show my benefit plans. I want to review some of the information that I have with my benefit enrollments. It starts sort of lists all the benefit plans that I have access to in here or that I'm enrolled into. So in this case, let me start with the health benefit. So it sort of prompts the conversation to go into the subsequent steps. So this is one way of interaction. So for example, I started with my health benefits, and then it shows the various health benefits I have. And I'm looking for the dental benefit specifically, who is the provider for the dental benefits. And I want to say who is essentially what is the latest cost associated with my benefits. So what is my latest deduction? It shows both the employee cost and employer cost in here. So as you go through this conversation, you can already see that all of this information is available in the system, and through self-service, I can navigate through various pages and find this information. But the bot is making it easier. I don't have to remember any of the navigation. It's providing me the information as I progress with the conversation. This is one way to go about it. The other way would be to basically, let's say I came in here looking for some specific information, like my dental costs. And you notice here, I'm not asking very well worded questions like what is my dental cost, or how much am I paying for my dental. I'm not framing it in a very detailed way. I'm just putting in some keywords like my dental cost, and it's giving me some options, whether I'm looking at the plan cost or plan details, or I'm looking for some other answer. So I'm looking for the dental cost. So it gave me that information right away. So either it can lead you through the conversation or get you the specific exact information that you are looking for. Let's say I want to look at, show me my dependents. I want to see who are my dependents in the system. And it brings back the dependents detail. There are more than one dependent. So there is a spouse and there is a child. So I can scroll through that list. And most likely in this scenario, let's say I want to look at their enrollments. What are my dependents enrolled into? And I can see they are enrolled into Vision. Who have I identified as a beneficiary of a certain benefit. So I'm looking at the beneficiary details. So once again, the chatbot is leading the conversation in terms of what I might be looking for and leading me into those conversations. And let's say I can see here that I have enrolled my beneficiaries. I split my beneficiary for my retirement plan 401k by 50% for two dependents. Let's say I want to change my beneficiary. So instead of just looking at the information, requesting information, now the user is actually asking to do something, like I want to change something. This is where there are a couple of options. There are certain delivered skills within PeopleSoft that allows you to change and submit information from within the bot itself, like submitting a leave request or submitting an expense. Or in this scenario, it says, okay, you're looking to change your beneficiary. You can do it on the beneficiary summary page or benefit summary page. Do you want me to take you there? Let's say I want to go there and review that. So basically clicking the option, it takes me to the benefit summary page. I can go into my 401k and change the beneficiary details in here. So once again, the couple of ways to handle the situation. So Chatbots provides those options. Let's say I want to quickly show updating the beneficiary information in here. While the user is doing that, the chat window is still open and the chat is still ongoing, so I can go back to that anytime. So let's say the earlier beneficiaries details was split by 50%. Now I want to make my spouse at 75, and my child at 25. I am completed with that, so that's saved. So I can go back and say that's all good and end the conversation. So that's one way to close it out. This is pretty much whatever I have showed you so far is all delivered functionality. But chatbots can do much more than that. Let's say there is a benefit assistant, and I have some questions about my benefits that may or may not be even related to PeopleSoft. For example, do I get Medicare benefits? Let's say it's benefit related, but Medicare essentially, let's say it could be a government offered benefit rather than an employer offered benefit. So in this case, one of my questions is, do I get Medicare benefit? So system brings back a list of matching answers. Let's say who is eligible for Medicare, what is Medicare, what are different parts of Medicare, are prescriptions covered in Medicare, how does Medicare work with my insurance? So maybe this is the information I was looking for. And like when I click to view it, you can see that it says when you have any other insurance, there is a part of it is covered. This is just some training stuff in there. And it gives me a link where I can go and find some related information, which is completely external information like government information. So this is also possible to be added to these chatbots, where it not only does specific things within PeopleSoft, but provides a way for users to configure a set of frequently asked questions libraries, so that many of the employee, or in case of student system, many of the student questions will be answered by the assistant itself. So this portion, this last portion I showed about this Medicare and the question answer, this is an add-on functionality. We will talk about how all of that works in our discussion. So with that, I will wrap up my the demo aspect of it and go back to our slide deck. I see some of the questions are coming through, but what I'll do is I will take the questions towards the end. Meanwhile, Cameron is also monitoring the chat, so we'll try to see if the questions can be answered as we progress. If not, we'll have a separate conversation towards the end addressing the questions. So in terms of value proportion of this chatbots, I want to quickly highlight three things. So this is essentially talking about how to, when you are thinking about chatbots and your organization is in very early stages and want to put together a business case for chatbots, what are the most important things to think about? First is user experience. Cameron explained it about the evolution of those user experience, but very quickly in terms of what you just saw, first thing, when a user is trying to get some things done when working through a chatbot, it's a lot more interactive and user feels more satisfied and they have a better experience getting things done in the system. Second thing, you notice that instead of navigating through 10 different pages and getting that information about all of my benefits, I could get it in one place where the information is self-served to me rather than me going to different places. And the third thing is, I don't have to remember any navigations. I wanted to change my beneficiaries, but system took me there to where I need to change it. So when things change, when it's sort of navigations and things change, when you take up new POM images, user don't have to remember or know about where things are, where the underlying functionality is in the system. Which then feeds into our next thing. When you are rolling out any new functionalities and you have a chatbot like assistant assisting the users, be it students or employees, more so in the student space where the end user base is very large and hard to manage, a chatbot can cut down a lot of training because users don't have to know all the underlying things. They want to get certain things done and chatbot can guide them to do it. So you don't have to train your user base with very legacy methods of training like PowerPoints, PDFs, and things like that. That's what the chatbot is for on-demand help. And most importantly, that leads to the very clear-cut benefit, that also a measurable benefit for the organization, is the ability of chatbots to cut down the amount of in-person support or on-call support that is need to be provided to your end users, especially with the features like the question and answer functionality, which could address a majority of frequently asked questions by your user base, will significantly cut down the amount of calls that are received by various administrative teams, be it HR, be it student support, all of those aspects. So when you're thinking about the business case for chatbots, it's user experience, training, and support, on-demand assistance. Those are the clear standout items that you need to look for. With that, let's quickly move on to the next topic, which is understanding what is the current state of PeopleSoft delivered chatbots. There are two aspects to it. Chatbot itself is a functionality that is both dependent on the technology, what people tools version you run. So there are some minimum versions. So starting with tools version 857.07, and then every single application pillar adopts chatbots at their own pace. There are 7 delivered chatbot skills that are available primarily on the HCM and finance side. However, in addition to this delivered skills, PeopleSoft also provides the entire framework called Application Service Framework and the software development toolkit for customers to create their own bots and skills. So for customers who are using campus solutions or learning management, HR help desk, all of those functions, it's fairly possible to create those bots and skills to your specific needs in addition to what is delivered out of the box. Use this list also as like a cheat sheet of what the individual bots can do. For example, I was demoing the benefits bot, the second on the list here. It can do like 8 to 10 things in terms of providing different information. However, the rest of the session is going to be about how to extend these chatbots, how to basically take these chatbots and deploy it and use it. So we are going to cover quite a bit of that in the coming session. One of the very important aspect about these chatbots for PeopleSoft is what is also in the roadmap for release this year. Of course, there is not a specific time frame available yet, but the digital assistant for PeopleSoft is a very significant aspect, because you just saw that I demoed a chatbot that's called Benefit Assistant. So there is chatbots for absence, for procurement, for requisitions, things like that. However, what is available now is a user will have to find that bot and request information relating to that. Like if I'm an employee, if I have my benefits questions, I need to go to the benefits bot to ask that. But what is in pipeline is a universal digital assistant for the PeopleSoft application that could orchestrate the conversations to any of the PeopleSoft bots or even non-PeopleSoft bots. So when that functionality is available, if you are using different PeopleSoft applications, be it HCM, FSCM, campus solutions, etc., all of your bots can be combined using this digital assistant. And the digital assistant will know, depending upon the question, where it should be routed. Because employees or students, when they have a question, those questions won't be modular. Like an employee would want to submit an expense or an absence request, and then would also want to know what other benefits they may have related to an absence, or they're submitting an expense request but want to travel somewhere or submit an absence request associated with it. Things like that. So the conversations in real world are not distinct. Users don't have to go to different places to do that. The single digital assistant will be able to orchestrate all of that. And specifically for customers who operate multiple systems, and use either Interaction Hub or use different logins across HCM, Finance, and Campus, the chatbot will be able to interact across all the systems. Once the skill is available, once you have built the skill or chatbot functionality, it will be able to orchestrate your conversation across those skills. User don't have to do that. So that's in the roadmap for release this year. All right. With that, I'll move on to answering some of the key questions and conversations that have come up in our prior discussions with our customers who are interested in chatbots. First aspect, the chatbots that we saw that was listed on the previous screen are all functional modular chatbots. What I mean by functional is the delivered chatbots can work as is. It's not a proof of concept. It is not something that the customer needs to spend too much time working upon. As delivered, those chatbots can already function handling the user request. We just saw an example of that. To use these chatbots, PeopleSoft customers need to subscribe to the Oracle Digital Assistant. That Oracle Digital Assistant is the platform that provides that natural language processing or machine learning capability for chatbots to interpret user requests that Cameron was explaining about. We will talk a little bit more about that. But that ODA subscription is needed to make the chatbots functional. In addition to the ODA subscription, there is no other PeopleSoft licensing requirement. PeopleSoft PeopleTools licenses cover the delivered chatbot functionality. There is no other servers or infrastructure requirements to get it up and running. All that the system needs is it should be able to talk to the ODA platform using the standard HTTP SSL protocol. There is no other additional server infrastructure requirements. There might be some firewall changes that may be needed to make sure the system can talk to each other. Once that is done, there is nothing else needed. The overall installation process to get the delivered chatbots up and running is fairly straightforward. In our experience, the overall setup time that is needed on the PeopleSoft and the ODA is cumulatively less than a day. We'll go through that process. I'll explain what the process is, but it's a very simple activity to get that done. And the chatbots that are delivered by PeopleSoft application are intended to be used with the PeopleSoft application. So user will need to be logged into the PeopleSoft application to use these chatbots. There are other channel options available. We will discuss about that as well towards the end of the session. And one of the common questions that we get is around security. So when it comes to the user and what data they can access, the chatbot functionality uses the existing security framework. So the data that uses is pretty much extracted from PeopleSoft around that security framework. So far, all the chatbots are end user functionality, employees. So all that information they can access is only related to them. There is no other information made available via chatbot functionality. And as I said before, in addition to utilizing the delivered chatbots, there is sort of a full toolkit that is available to build custom bots and also extend delivered bots. We will see how some of that functionality works. So these are some of the common questions and common conversations we have with customers who are getting their feet wet with the chatbot functionality. Before getting into the more detailed discussion about getting the chatbots production ready, the first step in the process is ability to get you up and running with the chatbot usage itself. And to start with that, there is essentially some installation and configuration aspects. As I said before, there are two different aspects or two related installation and configuration activities. First, things that to be done on the PeopleSoft side, and then things to be done on the ODA, Oracle Digital Assistant side. At a high level, this slide lists the 5 steps that are needed. And as you can see here, it's pretty straightforward process. There is some basic configuration process related to integration and security that needs to be done. And on the PeopleSoft side, and on the Oracle Digital Assistant side, setting up your account, making sure you have access to the delivered skills, and deploying those skills and training those skills to work with PeopleSoft. So it's a pretty straightforward process to get things up and running. This process is what I mentioned as the overall effort around this is something less than a day to get it up and running in your environment. So assuming that this step is done, we will now move on to the core of this session, which is what all can be done or what all needs to be done to take these PeopleSoft delivered chatbots and make it in a production ready. The term production ready is used here to indicate that when you are deploying the chatbots to a large user base like students or employees, the chatbots need to be flexible enough to handle the real world scenarios, what all the users may ask, what questions they may have, what are some of the areas they want to focus on, where many questions are expected, all those aspects. And more importantly, each organization has its own way of doing certain things, be it expenses, be it benefits. That might be custom terminologies to talk about. So what all a customer needs to do to take these delivered bots and use it or deploy it for their usage. That's the focus of this next session. Sorry, next part of this session. Before I get into the details, I want to quickly cover some of the terms because we are going to be reusing some of these terms quite a bit as we go through the slides. So let's make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of understanding what some of these terminologies are. The term chatbot and the term skill are sort of means the same thing. In the Oracle Digital Assistant platform, the term skill refers to a chatbot. And consider a chatbot is a specialized assistant in one specific area. Like benefit assistant is a single chatbot, it is a single skill. Expense assistant is a single chatbot, or absence assistant. Each of them are a specific chatbot and a specific skill. When we use the term digital assistant, that is essentially a combination of multiple chatbots or multiple skills orchestrated through a single interface. That's when we use the term digital assistant. And that is where I mentioned the digital assistant for PeopleSoft is something that is coming out very soon. So right now we are dealing with individual chatbots that are specialized in those specific areas. When a user interacts with the chatbots, they could use this chatbots or interact with this chatbot through multiple channels. And one of the channels, and the default channel for PeopleSoft chatbots, is the web channel, which is bringing up that window within the PeopleSoft application and interacting with the chatbot. However, chatbots can work with other channels. We will see some of those as well. But when we use the term channel, consider it as like how the user is interacting with a chatbot. Is it through their phone? Is it through their computer, etc.? Whatever a user says to a chatbot, be it a question they're asking or an information they want to submit, whatever they are typing in or talking is called as an utterance. And an utterance is something that reflects what is directly coming out of the user. Now that utterance needs to be understood by the chatbot, and for which it uses the natural language processing. That's the artificial intelligence machine learning capabilities that the chatbot platform uses to understand that utterances. And what that platform does is, its first purpose is to identify, or the first objective is to identify what exactly is the user trying to do. So that functionality, what the user is trying to do, is referred to as an intent. What does the user want to achieve? Is the user requesting some information? Is the user submitting some information? What they are trying to do with that particular question or a comment. Within that particular question or a comment, there might be some keywords that are of interest to us. Like I framed the question earlier, what is my dental cost? What is my dental cost is an utterance. And by that question, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a dental cost. That's the intent of doing it. And most important aspect to service that intent is the dental and the cost keyword, because I'm trying to get the cost of my dental. That keywords to service that intent is called entities. So these three items is of utmost importance when we talk about chatbots: utterances, intent, and entities. Utterances is anything the customer says. Intent is what they are trying to achieve. An entity is what is the keywords that are going to help us achieve that intent. Once we have that information, then the chatbot responds in a way that we have trained it to, either accepting that request or providing some information. It responds in a way that the customer wants, and then prompts the conversation to the next step, what the user wants to do, which then gets into the next cycle that either the user wants to do something or they want to, their activity is complete, they want to exit the conversation. So this is a typical cycle of a conversation. So of this, all I want you to remember is utterance, intent, and entities, because we're going to talk about that quite a bit today. All right. So let's go into the process of maintaining these chatbots. Let's say it starts with assuming that you have subscribed to the Oracle Digital Assistant and you have connected it with PeopleSoft, and you are ready to deploy the skill that is delivered, deploy the chatbot that is delivered by PeopleSoft, and make it ready for production. So where does the process start? It starts with downloading the delivered skill. Just like your PUM image that can be downloaded from the Oracle store, these chatbots can be downloaded from a chatbot store that you access from within the Oracle Digital Assistant. Once you have downloaded this, you will typically keep the delivered chatbot as is and clone and create a custom version because you don't want to modify the source code. So you are basically cloning and creating a custom version. That custom version is where you do all of your work. You will enhance it, you will customize it, train it, make it yours, and deploy it. So you deploy and use that custom version. Whenever you want to make more changes, you would basically create another version of it, increase the version number, and pretty much do the same process. So once you start using this chatbot skill that you have customized, when I say customized, for PeopleSoft customers specifically, I'm not talking about code changes here. I'm talking about customizing the usage of the chatbots to your requirements. So we'll see how the customizations work in the chatbot world. And once you have started customizing and using it, you will be able to gather a lot of insights about how your chatbot is being used by your users. Let's say you have deployed a chatbot to your students, and what are the questions they are asking? Are they getting the responses they are looking for? Are the chatbots meeting the requirements, etc.? And then you'll be able to work through and enhance the skill further with subsequent versions. When it comes to customizing and enhancing the skills, we are going to be talking about utterances, intents, entities, question answers, dialog flow, and channels. All these aspects, these 5 aspects is what we are going to be discussing, how you can enhance the skill. And this is a cyclical process. You enhance a skill, you deploy it, you review how it is used based on insights that are collected, and continue to manage that to meet the ongoing demands of your organization. So this is a cyclical process. Now we are basically, after roughly half the time in the session, we are getting into the 5 steps that is called out in the abstract of this session, about 5 things that you need to do or you need to review and be familiar with to get your chatbots production ready. So let's see what those 5 steps are. First thing, I spoke about utterances. Utterances is anything the user either says or types in. Now, what is important about handling utterances? The utterances is the aspect that is going to determine how much the chatbots are flexible enough to handle your customer requests. So you need to make sure when you deploy these chatbots, the utterances reflect your custom terminologies. For example, I was earlier talking to the chatbot and I was putting in my dependents or my beneficiaries. Those are PeopleSoft terminologies, dependents, beneficiaries. You might be calling beneficiary like a nominee for your benefit. So if that's the term that is used in the organization, if a person puts in nominee, the chatbot is not going to figure it out. They're not going to map it to beneficiary automatically. So that's where those custom terminologies comes into play. You need to train the chatbot to understand those custom terminologies. If you're using multiple languages in your organization, if your PeopleSoft system can support different languages, you can train your chatbots in different languages and variations as well. So we will see how all of those things are done. Second, intents. When it comes to intents, we spoke about what the user wants to get done. There is a delivered list of intents, and you can expand the delivered list. You can add more things to it. Either extend what is already delivered or completely create new intents. For example, let's say the expense chatbot allows you to submit a certain kind of expenses, but it doesn't allow you to do certain things, certain other things. You can add that add-on capability using the framework for the system to be able to do that, for the chatbot to be more flexible. So we'll see how some of those things are done. And the third aspect is the question and answer. This is the question and answer I demoed earlier about the Medicare functionality. That's an example. Why this is important is, in addition to getting things done in the system, as I showed before, Chatbot can address a lot of other questions the user may have that may have nothing to do with PeopleSoft at all. So how to get that set up and reduce the number of items that becomes a service request or a call to your admin teams. That would be done using the question and answers framework. So we'll see how that works. Dialog flow, which is again important. And this dialog flow is an area where customers would end up working as your usage of your chatbots mature. So that might come a little bit later in the process, where you are seeing how conversations are done, whether the conversations are done in an ending in an abrupt way, customers are not feeling satisfied, or are they feeling satisfied? And depending upon that, you basically work out, change the dialogue flow. A simple example is, let's say a customer is looking to check their leave balance. Maybe after they find that leave balance, system responds with the leave balance, but after the system responds, maybe the bot should ask, do you like to submit a leave? That coming up with a question as a prompt, as a next step, those things are controlled by the dialog flow. How are you training your bot to be more interactive, more related to what the user is trying to do? All those things are controlled by the dialog flow. So this is an area that customers would end up working as well. And finally, the channels. Channels is the gateway of how users interact. There is a delivered default channel, which is the web channel we saw earlier. There are a few other channels as well that are part of the digital assistant platform that the customers can make use of. We will see what those are later in this presentation. All right. With that, moving into our first topic, which is the working with the utterances. I will not be spending a lot of time reading through all of that, but at a high level, be aware that utterances, since utterances are the way the customer interacts with the system, there is a lot of flexibility in the ODA platform for customers to train their chatbots with a lot of utterances. You will see what those are. For example, in this slide, I have called out where and when you may have to work with these utterances, like mixing up the grammars, changing the lengths of the sentence. Like if you remember from my demo earlier, I just put in a comment saying that show my dependents or my dependents. I don't even have to say, please show my dependents. So there's all the variation. System can, using the natural language processing, system will be able to find out a lot of that, but you also can train it with multiple versions of it. So we will see how all of that is done in this section. Of course, if it's a detailed training program, we'll actually show this capability in the system. For the purpose of duration of this session, I'm going to show how this is done on the Oracle Digital Assistant platform using some screenshot in here. This is a screenshot from the ODA platform where I'm looking at a particular chatbot that is exactly the one that I was demoing earlier, the benefit chatbot. And specifically the intent that is highlighted here, get dependent beneficiaries. And on the right-hand side, the big square rectangle here, red color, is showing what are all the different utterances that are associated with the dependent beneficiary. So the intent is to get the dependent beneficiary, but what are all the various ways an employee could ask for that information? Are my child covered in vision? Are my children covered under dental plan? Give me a list of beneficiaries. This is one example. As you can see here, there are 6 pages of utterances that are already delivered with this chatbot. So there are 50 different variations for this particular intent, how it can be used. So what a customer can do is download this list. There are 2 ways, actually, sorry, let me go back here. There are 2 ways how customers can expand this utterances. One, if there are only few utterances that you want to add, you can manually add it in here. So for example, that I discussed earlier, let's say instead of beneficiary, you want to use the term nominees, then you will basically add all of the questions or term sentences that you want to add to that utterance list. Who are my nominees? Who are my savings plan nominees? My savings plan nominees? My benefit nominees? You can basically type it in. It's like a text pad. You can type in all of your utterances and click create. System will create your utterances. Or you can click a link to download the utterances into an Excel sheet. It's going to download a file like a CSV file. You can see here for the get dependent beneficiary, there are over 50 different ways customers can ask this information. When any of these utterances or anything close to this is asked by the user, system is going to map it to this intent. They are trying to get the dependent beneficiary information. So you can download this list, copy, paste, create more rows in this CSV file itself, and upload it back into the system. So at times you'll be dealing with hundreds of utterances, especially when you're working with population like students. There might be hundreds of ways they may frame the question, or they might use different terminologies. So you could just work all of that in your CSV file and upload it back into the system. So there is a bulk upload option as well. But as I mentioned before, this screenshot that is shown here is delivered out of the box. To give you an idea, the benefit skill chatbot that is delivered in the system has roughly around 500 different utterances to meet different intents. So that's how much it is already trained, but you can train for your custom terminologies as well. In addition to adding or changing utterances, there is also ability to add autocomplete suggestions. So for example, you can type in the sentences that the user may want to finish, or based on the intent, they might be asking about certain things specific. For example, when the user types in who are, if I have this list, like who are enrolled, who are my beneficiaries, who are my dependents, then it will automatically prompt user to see one of these options. Of course, this is exactly like how you text in your phone. When you start typing in, it's predictive. It's going to show you some of the possibilities. And here you are sort of predefining those possibilities relating to your skills. So user might choose either who are my dependents or who are my beneficiaries, etc. So there is the ability to add this functionality as well. Whenever you do anything with your chatbot, be it utterance, intents, etc., you will have to retrain them. Training is where system picks up your changes. So in this case, I showed you a couple of ways the utterances can be updated, or autofill functionality can be added. When you do that, it's going to show that it requires training, because it shows that exclamation mark in orange color. It means it needs some action and it needs to be trained. When it comes to training, there are two ways a chatbot can be trained using the Oracle Digital Assistant platform. At a very high level, one is a linguistic-based model. It is the fastest one, and all PeopleSoft delivered skills are trained using this model. The second one is a machine learning model. It takes time, and it takes much larger pool of utterances to use this model. So very rarely used for the PeopleSoft skills. Just be aware there are two ways of doing this. So you could use this method to get your utterances trained. Once trained, within the digital assistant platform itself, there is an ability to test the training. So for example, let me do this. So as you can see here, there is a testing functionality on the right side of the screen. I'm typing in a question, who are enrolled, and it shows me that section at the top. It says, when there is a question, who are enrolled, these are the intents that are matched, and what is the intent that has the highest match. In this case, get dependent beneficiary, that is 89.1% is the match. So this is the one that is going to be returned because that question relates to this particular intent the most. For example, when you want to train, for who are enrolled, if you want this question to be related to another intent, then that means, let's say, get open enrollment. If that's the intent that should come up to the top of the list, there needs to be more utterances relating to this question added to this intent. So it comes higher in the ranking. So you basically get to play around and define what question leads to what answers. Not just answers, what intent, what the user is trying to do. Of course, just remember, these are all needed when you want to extend the usage and make it more specific. For a delivered skill like the benefit skill I had demoed earlier, this comes out of the box. You don't have to do this to make it work. All of this is already done. When you want to make changes, when you want to do things differently, is when you will work with these aspects. There is also a capability within the ODA tool to run a quality check on the utterances. When the utterance quality report is run, it highlights some of the mismatches here. For example, what utterances look very similar, or what are the misclassified utterances. Some examples here. tell me my beneficiary and tell me my benefit is found out to be a similar utterance by the system. So if there could be any variations, you could add that. Of course, it's not that you have to fix them. It's indicating you that things are a bit similar here. So the matches might be difficult, things like that. Or misclassified utterances. So in this case, I've just put in some dummy data in here to say my beneficiary designation is mapped to get plan detail rather than get dependent beneficiary. So system thinks it should be mapped to this intent, but it has been actually mapped to this intent. So it shows you that sort of variations. These are all to assist with the customers to build the sort of utterances and intents in a way they want to. These are essentially considered as like additional tools that you can use. Of course, once you get into work into these areas, you basically have certain guidances in terms of how to work with these utterances and intents. I'm not going to go through all of that, but things like some basic information, like use real-world data and terminologies when you are creating your utterance pool. Make sure you train all intents with a similar number of utterances. Don't train one intent with 100 utterances and another intent with like 10 utterances, because the chances of that first one getting picked up all the time is very high. The second one may not even get picked up. So things like that. So some best practices to keep in mind when you are working with this utterances, the conversational design. Of course, this is an area on its own where you could make the chatbot extremely flexible and friendly to your users when you start working through these aspects. So that's with our first topic. That wraps up our first topic, which is utterances. For most customers, to get the delivered chatbots production ready, just playing around with the utterances and making sure it meets all of your usage is more than sufficient. All these subsequent items are like add-ons. What are other functional things that you can do with this system?
Hey, Logesh, just jumping in here. We got about 8 minutes left, and we do have a couple questions. So just want to give you a quick time check.
Sure, will do. I'll try to wrap through some of these items in the next few minutes and have at least a few of 5 minutes or so for the session. Thanks, Cameron, for the questions. So when it comes to intents, let me breeze through this quickly. Let's have a quick look at the delivered intents, which is in this example, an intent which is used for the benefit functionalities. There are intents that are merely responding with predefined answers like greetings and exiting an intent, or when a question is unresolved, like asking for more information. And there are intents that are actually doing certain things in the system, trying to get some information. And for the intents that are trying to get some information in the system, that's where entities come into play. And in many cases, a customer may have to work with the entity list as well. For example, going back to our benefits demo earlier, we spoke about requesting some plan information, and the plan categories, plan types, all could be customer specific. Of course, there are like 20, 30 different plan categories and plan types that system delivers, but you may be only using 4 or 5. So you may want to trim it down, or you may want to add your custom plan categories and types, things like that. So this is an area where you would work through all of that configuration. Similar to the utterances, the entities also can be exported to a file, managed, and imported back into the system. So there is flexibility to do that. One other important aspect when it comes to adding more intents is there is ability to add intents that are just answering questions. It doesn't have to do things in the system. For example, an employee asks for benefit expiry, when my benefit would expire. An answer could be all your benefits expire 1 month after your termination, or end of the month of your termination. It could be a simple answer. It doesn't have to query anything from the system. It could be directly set up in the ODA itself. You don't have to write any, it doesn't have to interact with even PeopleSoft to get that information. So there is a concept called answer intent that users need to be aware of. So that's how example of how an answer intent works. When does my benefit expire? It basically gives the answer right away. Question and answers, good that we covered in the demo in terms of how the question and answer works. Question and answers, this slide deck will be available as part of the presentation, so you can basically read through all of that information. But once again, similar to the utterances, question and answers can be worked on in a CSV file. It's a very simple format. You choose a category, you provide all of the questions and provide that are related to a particular topic and answers. This is an example of the Medicare that I showed you earlier. So basically a simple Excel CSV file format to work with, and provide a category, provide a list of questions, and provide answers. Answers could include HTML links, and upload that file, and in this case, train the bot. So once you have uploaded, you can edit the list manually. You then train the bot similar to how we trained with the utterances. And once the training is done, you can test which questions comes out for what, which questions that the system picks up based on the utterances you provide. You can work through the rankings, all of those details as well. And here is a quick example of the questions that we actually saw in the demo. So when you ask the question, what is Medicare? It shows what is the best match, the exact match, what is Medicare. It then allows you to scroll through all the available options related to the topic Medicare and look at the answers. So that's the question functionality. Dialog flow, as I said, this is a little bit of a more mature topic where when you want to work with changing the behavior of how your chatbot functions in certain cases, you will work through that. There is a specific, I'll just go back in here. There is a specific, actually, there are a couple of ways you can work with the dialog flow here. One is through a coding language, and another is through a more user-friendly conversational designer. There are a couple of ways to work through that. I'll just quickly show you a couple of scenarios where a user may have to work with the dialog flow. One is changing the delivered messages. For example, when you see a delivered message and you want to change the wordings of it, the dialog flow contains where those messages are obtained from, so you can review that and change it. In this case, it's a message catalog within PeopleSoft. Or let's say when in this example, there is an unresolved question, user asked benefit plan, system couldn't find it. It prompts with 3 options. Now, instead, if you wanted to prompt with 5 options, allowing the user to return to the main menu. When you want to make the changes like this, how the chatbot behaves and responds to certain questions, you would essentially work with this conversation designer. Again, these are more in-depth training content, so we'll breeze through some of those aspects. And to add a question and answer capability, it is once again with the conversation design. I want to quickly show you some slides on the insights that are available once you start using this chatbots. So let's say, for example, this is insight that is available for the benefit chatbot. It shows what are all the intents that are getting picked up by tags, and get plan detail. The biggest tag here is the one that is getting used most often. When you click on the tag, it shows what are all the common utterances that is causing this intent to be invoked. People are typing in my benefits plan, my savings plan. That's pulling up this intent, right? So it has all that information, how much time it takes to pull up each of that, how much time it takes to render that information. So you can work through and optimize your usage. There is even ability to record all of the conversations and view it, of course, for a certain period in time. System can even record all the conversations that are happening. So you can learn how users are interacting with it. Same with question and answers, how question and answers are getting used. There is ability to retrain the bot using these insights. In some cases, you may not think that it's used in a certain way, so you want to add it. So ability to retrain as well. So that's also possible. The last aspect I want to quickly highlight here before taking the question is the ODA channels. I mentioned a couple of times the default channel for PeopleSoft is Oracle Web. In addition to that, there are a lot of other channels that are supported by ODA platform. PeopleSoft also supports the SMS channel using the Twilio provider. So that's also an option available, but we'll not spend too much time. This is a quick recap. So we'll go back to the questions now. Extremely sorry.
So so we'll probably go a little over time if that's all right with everybody. Feel free to jump off and just send us an email offline about any other questions. But Logesh, the first question is kind of campus. What's happening with campus here? Can you speak to that? What's available?
Yes, for the campus solution customers, if you're on the right tools version, PeopleTools 8.7, you have the chatbot framework and capability within the application. And campus customers can build their own bots. There isn't any readily available bots as of now, but there could be bots that are released using the framework in the future. But campus customer right now can use the framework to create their own bots. Pretty much using the process we just described about working with utterances, intents, all of those aspects.
And so that kind of leads us to the next question: is how would you create a new chatbot in any of the pillars?
Okay, so the chatbot itself, for the chatbot to function, that bot can be entirely built in the ODA platform. You pretty much start either from cloning a delivered bot. The delivered bot need not be PeopleSoft related. There are in the bot store within the Oracle Digital Assistant, there are various bots. You can pick up a bot, you can clone, or you can start from like a clean slate as well, and build your bot and train it to do answer various questions. It is only when the questions rely upon PeopleSoft data, then you need the backend integration to talk to PeopleSoft. And those integrations are done through the integration broker, REST APIs, and using a framework called Application Services Framework. So you build that integration to pull information from PeopleSoft to show it via the bot. That's when you would need either to pull information or update back with PeopleSoft with some data. That's when you would use those integrations.
Yeah, and there's a 4 or 5 step process that we can detail a little bit more if you're interested in building your own. It is require some skill sets that are outside of PeopleSoft, specifically some of the programming that has to happen within the ODA. That's not necessarily a programming language that exists within PeopleSoft. However, there's a preset sort of template that Oracle does provide for PeopleSoft, and we can help you with if you wanted to look at that. There was a question on cost of ODA, and Joe, thanks, Joe, for answering that question. I think that pricing was actually in one of the slides you just skipped past pretty quickly, so it's actually in this deck as well. I will say that that is the list price, and that you can work with your Oracle rep to see if we can work through a discount. So we'll just leave it at that. We are an authorized reseller as well, so if you want to talk to us, we can offer you a quote on that as well for ODA. So with that, I think, Logesh, if you have any other last comments, I think we'll close up the session.
I think that's pretty much what I have, Cameron. Thank you very much, and appreciate all the questions. I think the content we had here was a lot more detailed, and is essentially a content for even the larger training sessions if for customers who are interested and want to take it further. So please feel free to contact us, and our details will be shared as part of this slide deck presentation. And thank you very much. All of you have a great rest of the conference.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
The recording of today's presentation will be available from the conference website starting tomorrow. A few reminders before everyone goes. We hope you take some time during this upcoming session break to submit your feedback in the session surveys. You can easily find the survey under the resources in the mobile event. Make sure to check out the Virtual Solution Center. You'll be able to attend demos, set up one-on-one meetings, and enter for giveaways. Join us each day for the exhibitor meet and greet at 3:25 p.m. Eastern. As a final parting note, the Hug would like to thank our presenters for putting on the session, and a big thank you for everyone for participating.
Thank you, Zayas. Thank you, everyone.
And have a great day.
Thank you.